Good morning, good afternoon or good evening, wherever in the world you might be watching. This intermediate upload will discuss two commonly used functions, the payment function and the interest on the payment functions. The reason I've included interest on payments is that we can check how much interest is involved, particularly for tax purposes, if you're using these particular formulas in a business sense, because if you borrow money in your business and you pay interest, then you can generally deduct the interest payments for tax purposes. So here is our goal. We want to look at a principal of $10,000, an annual rate of 6% over a 12-month term, and we'll assume that we want equal monthly payments with a fixed interest rate and the loan taken out in March. So we can see here that our monthly repayment is $860.66. There's a certain amount of interest on each payment that reduces each time because as I make each payment, the principal reduces in terms of what is still owing, and here the principal in the payment is the difference between the payment itself and the interest you've paid, naturally. And I've simply totaled that down the bottom here to prove that the principal in the payments is equal to the amount that you first borrowed. So let's go to the solution sheet and see what we have to do. Same parameters here, and a procedure checkbox list that we can tick off each time we complete a procedure. And I've also, after we finish, I've mentioned here, consider how a business can now easily calculate interest payments for tax purposes. So our first thing is to work out how do we get the payment. Well, what I do, I click in the cell, of course, where I want the answer, and then in the formulas tab I use the drop down list and scroll down to the payment function, because what that does, it shows me the formula builder over on the right hand side, which makes creating the formula, in my opinion, just that little easier. So which cell is the rate in? The rate is in cell E5, but it's an annual rate. I want monthly repayments, so I divide the annual rate by 12. What's the number of periods? The number of periods will be here, the term in months, in E6. The present value is the amount I wish to borrow. That's here in cell E4. The future value I'll make 0 because I want to pay the loan off in full. And there's one last argument down here, that is the type. Now the type can either be a 0 or a 1. If it's a 0, it means that you are making each payment at the end of each month. If you make it a 1, you'll pay a little less interest, but you need to make your repayments at the start of each month. This is generally the case when you take out a lease on a motor vehicle or on equipment, for example, when you would have to make your first payment on the day that the lease is signed and at the start of each month thereafter. We'll make it a 0 because most people will pay at the end of each month. Now we can click done, and there is my repayment, $866.66. I want to auto-fill that down, but what I need to do first is to look up here in the formula bar, and because I always want the formula to refer to what's in these cells, I need to make some cell references absolute. I do that by clicking in the first cell reference and hold down the F4 key on a Windows machine, or function F4 if you're using an Apple Mac. We'll do the same on cell E6, function F4 or F4 on a Windows machine, and the same on the next one. Now when I press enter, I see the answer is the same, but now when I auto-fill down, I see that the repayment is always the same, $860.66. I don't particularly like the look of the brackets in that formula, so what I'm going to do after the equal sign in the formula bar is to insert an absolute function, ABS, open a bracket and then close a bracket at the end to balance the brackets. And the reason I do that is because the absolute function removes any signs, such as minus signs or brackets. So when I now press enter, there I see that there are no brackets. I'll autofill that one down. And there we are, the brackets have been removed. Now I'll close the formula builder over here, that's done its job, and we'll put a tick in the enter payment functions in cell D10. Now in cell E10, I want to work out how much interest I pay in each of the repayments, and I do that by using a function called IPMT. So again, formulas tab, drop arrow next to the formulas for financial functions, and go down to IPMT. When we click on that, again we see the formula builder. The rate is in that cell. Remember that we had to divide by 12. The period number is in this cell for the very first payment. The number of periods is in cell E6. The present value again is in cell E4. The future value again is 0, and the type is also 0, in the same as we saw in the payment function. So let's click done. There I see the interest on my first payment was $50. What I need to do now is to think about the absolute signs in the formula. There'll be one there because we always want it to refer to the rate. C16, I do not put an absolute dollar signs in there because I want Excel, as I copy down, to increase that number by 1 each time. But what I do need to do is to make E6 absolute, which is the term, and also I need to make the principal absolute as well. Now when I press enter, I see that my rate is my interest is the same, of course, but I'm going to put the absolute function again before, just after the equal sign, and close the bracket to balance them again, and we'll now see that the brackets have been removed. I purely do that for appearance sake. Now what I can do is to drag that formula down, or because there is data in the column immediately to the left, I can simply double click, if I wish, the autofill button, and there are my various interest payments on the principal that I make. Now the principal in each payment, if I want to know that, I can easily calculate by typing an equal sign, and I will deduct from the interest payment minus the payment itself. When I do that, I see that I've made a payment of $810.66 off the principal. Now again, I can copy that down, and there is the principal that I make in each of my repayments. Let's use the absolute function again. It just makes your spreadsheet look better than having minus signs or figures in red or brackets all over the place. And we will double click that autofill button, and there I see my answer. Now let's total the amount of interest paid. I'll click down here, and in the home tab, or in the formulas tab, I'll click the auto sum button. Looks up the column. Yes, guessed correctly. I've paid a total of $327.97 in interest, and again we will auto sum the principal. It should come to 10,000, which it does. So we know that our principal in each repayment totals the principal that I originally borrowed. We'll close the formula bar. We'll make a couple of ticks here now to say that we've done the job, and lastly, we want to consider how a business can easily calculate interest payments for tax purposes. Now, we'll assume for this particular exercise that the start of the financial year is July, and I want to calculate how much interest I pay, we'll say, for my tax return from July, we'll say, to December. We'll say we have to put in a tax return for the 6 months. So what I'm going to do here is to click in this cell, for example. I'll use the auto sum button, and what I want to do now is to drag down through July for the interest down to December, and when I press enter, there is my tax claim, $139.55. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope that you follow this and learn the procedures, particularly working out the interest on payments if you have a business. It makes the calculation of your tax schedule just that little more easy. Again, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe unless you've already done so, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.